the show. Welcome to the Verdict Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verda. Hopefully, we're going to have a nice and easy stream here this time. We're going to do a quick practice report for you. We got our practice highlights coming out in about 30 minutes. We're going to probably upload them right after the stream ends. We just like to give you a little quick report here. We're going to talk about the offensive line a little bit, clear up some of the confusion from yesterday, talk about the offense, talk about the defense, got some other notes. Then we're going to preview a little bit of what's to come for the Verdant Verdict here throughout the next couple of weeks. So let's start this off with the offensive line. There's been a little bit of confusion. There's been a little bit of a mixing up, changing up, people coming in, people coming out. You seen us talk yesterday about Garrett Dellinger at center. Today you saw DJ Chester back at center, but Garrett Dellinger did take some snaps there. We talked around, we fielded out, we listened to all the murmurs around the facility, if you will, and from what we gathered, it'll be some cross training. It makes sense. It makes sense because just changing up the continuity of this offensive line at this point of the season when you've got 3 weeks of, I think, 19 days all in all until the game. It just wouldn't have made sense, especially when your main game plan is to run the football, pound the rock, bully ball, if you will, as our guy Blanche would say. It was a little interesting to see. So, I mean, I'm going to agree with the cross training thing. We're going to keep an eye on it, though, because I don't know if it's something if you don't have an injury yet, it could just be all hypotheticals. It could just be them, putting him in a situation where if shit hits the fan, he won't be confused. I wonder, though. I wonder, if anything could potentially be going on. Upon first glance, it's a little startling, but then when you kind of peel the layers back and put some sense in it and stop overreacting, then it's kind of like, okay, well, it could be this. It could be, similar to what they're doing with Sage Ryan. Hope it is. We'll continue to monitor it. Moving to the offensive side of things. Garrett Nussmeier, he's been doing good as a starting quarterback, and he's been having his moments, and he's been, having extremely good passes on tape. He's had a lot of, high-flying, explosive passes even before this season throughout his entire career as a whole. Something I do want to note, though, the decision-making is definitely, on the up and up. He's definitely growing in that category. A lot of people are wondering about the interceptions. A lot of people are wondering on if he's going to be able to keep the ball on this side and um, not turn it over. And I think, just with the things we've seen, with the way that he's handled these practice reps in a man coverage scheme or in a scheme where his receivers are wrapped up and he's been taking it to the sideline, throwing it away, trying not to force anything, trying not to put things in harm's way. And that's basic quarterback fundamentals. But when you're a gunslinger, when you trust your arm, and as we've seen Garrett Nussmeier do a little bit in the past, you can try to make something happen. You can try to force something. You could try to throw something down the field. And a lot of people in the chat, a lot of people in the comments, and a lot of people all over Louisiana, quite frankly, have been worrying about the turnover side of things for this offense when Garrett Nussmeier takes over. All I can say is what I've seen throughout fall camp and even what I've seen through spring camp. He's trying to take care of the ball the best he can. He's making those decisions where he doesn't always have to have a gain. He doesn't always have to have, a positive play. He can just throw it to the sideline, regroup. It's better than it being in the defender's hands. So that's a quick note that I wanted to make about Nussmeier just through the recent murmurs. Another thing, Kamorian Pimpton continues to shine. He's shining a lot. They're giving him a lot of opportunities, whether it be in a red zone look, just in normal reps as a whole. It's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him. Just pairing him with someone like Mason Taylor, who I'd imagine will be your predominant tight end all season long. But you got a 1-2 punch, and you could potentially have a 1-2-3 combo 3-piece if you can let Trudez Green get into the mix and iron, those freshman kinks out. I'd imagine early on in the season, it'll just be Kamorian and Mason, and maybe Trudez Green will get thrown into the fold as the season plays out. But who knows, honestly? You could see the young buck, Trudez Green, get out there. I mean, there's been a couple times in practice where he stood out, but if I had to pick a tight end that has really like surprised me and really took control, so to speak, of the momentum that surrounds fall camp for what that matters, it's been Kamorian Pimpton. I've been excited to see, how they've been integrating him into this new scheme, this new Nussmeier offense, this new Joe Sloan offense, if you will. And as Joe Sloan said himself, it's fun. The tight ends can make things fun. You can get really creative. You can throw a bunch of different looks at people that they really have not seen before. And that's going to be something to continue to keep an eye on, just how this LSU offense continues to develop, continues to add wrinkles and layers, if you will, to this game. You know, It's going to start out with the run. It's going to start out with people wondering where the deep passes are. But all in all, this short field game, this whole overall getting your players in a little bit of a momentum based scheme will be a little interesting to see, just because they can go tit for tat, draw the pass down. They could probably push down the field in a matter of seconds if they really wanted to. But just being methodical, picking people apart, bleeding time off the clock, that's where the short field's going to kind of come into play, if you ask me. Another note, John Emery has been looking really good, really fresh. I know we've been monitoring injuries. He's one of the more major ones. Him and Zai both have that ACL recovery that they're going through currently. But John Emery's handling it like a champ. He looks fresh. He got a lot of reps into this highlight video that we're going to be showing you today after the stream. And I'm pretty convinced that he could be the starter. I mean, I'm sure Josh Williams has a pretty good case, a pretty good argument, but just with John Emery coming back from the portal, committing to UCLA, he's like, I'm gonna go back home. I'm wondering what the pitch was, the recruitment pitch, if you will, if there even it was one. Maybe it consisted with John Emery getting a bigger role than he would have anticipated, and then throughout fall camp, with the way that he's been handling it, I'd imagine that role could even potentially grow. John he has a lot of talent and potential that he really hadn't tapped, if you will. And I mean, I don't know if you remember John back at Destrehan, but I mean, the dude was a problem. He was somebody that you would have thought would have played every Saturday for LSU, quite frankly. And obviously, things haven't translated that way, but it doesn't mean that it can't. I'm going to be interested to see how he handles this season, because this is really do or die for both, for Josh and for John. You got two 5-year backs here with a lot of experience, and that's why you're going to lean on them early into the season. Just let them kind of light the torch, let them kind of get things kick-started for LSU here on the offensive side of things. The last offensive note that I'll give to you, Kyle Parker, he's so close to being elite. And it's not a knock on him. He's still a great player, phenomenal player, but he is so close to being a lockout wide receiver 4, or, thrown into the mix in a lot more than just a return game. We've been saying the same thing for Xavier Thomas. I really would like to see him get incorporated more offensively than on special teams. Of course, he can do both. That's not the question. The question can never be if you do both. You can always do both. I mean, obviously, the problem is going to be how much energy are you going to lose doing both? How much focus are you going to lose doing both? And are you better suited just picking one aspect? That's kind of the question that they're going to have to ask here, especially in this situation when you got two very talented players on the offensive side of things, and they're smaller, but they're very fast. They're very easy to kind of just get open. And if you're going to continue to utilize the short field like you've been doing, I'd imagine that they see the field here rather early. Let's move to the defensive side of things. I got a little bit of notes for you. I got about 3 big takeaways here. First things first. Juwan Johnson as the backup star, he's going to need a little bit of work. It's not bad, and I mean, you don't expect a freshman to just instantly hit LSU and still be running on the ground, quite frankly. You know what I mean? Sometimes their legs get taken out from under them. Sometimes it's hard to match the speed of the game. Sometimes it's hard to digest the coverage, quite frankly. But with Juwan, I don't think it's any of that as much as it is just the eyes. Sometimes, like, there's going to be a play here today with Aaron Anderson kind of making a break on him. And Aaron Anderson's been making a break on the starting star with Major Burns. It's nothing to do with, and I'm not saying it's nothing to do with their coverage as much as it is Aaron's speed. It just might be a bad example to use. Aaron Anderson is pretty quick. He is kind of, twitchy, if you will. And in these routes, Majors, and in Juwan's instance, you probably could have some help over the middle. But just what I've seen from the star position, they're gonna want to not be as aggressive. They're not really gonna want to jump at the ball, jump at the press, jump at this, jump at that. Because if you get beat, they're only getting faster. They're only breaking away more. They're only creating more separation. It's kind of one of those spots. I feel like if you're playing coverage, you're gonna want to get a little bit of room, kind of figure out where to move, and not just commit to one side and then wind up getting burnt. It's one of those catch-22s, though, because Blake Baker's scheme wants them to be in the mix, wants them to jump towards the ball, wants them to be aggressive, wreak havoc. And if that's the case, if this is what they want from the star position, then, like I said, it's going to need a little bit of work. And it's not saying that it's not going to happen, and it's not saying that the DBs are bad. It's not saying any of that as much as it is. You're not as consistent as you really want to be. And if you want to get in the college football playoff and make it to the end, you can't have passes go over the middle repeatedly. So that's one of the takeaways that I've had for the defense. Second thing, I think PJ Willen and J.K. Johnson's stock is rising. JK's more than PJ just because, PJ's in that same boat as Jawan. Younger guy. PJ's a little bit smaller, a little bit more frail. But what I've noticed from JK is that he's able to step up in coverage against anybody. He's not backing down. He's going pretty much being as physical as possible. It bit him today a little bit against CJ Daniels. CJ got to catch over him, but then you flash forward a couple reps later, and there's JK to deflect the ball over CJ. So those competitive reps, it's uplifting a little bit, if you will, for that cornerback depth because J.K. Johnson's been a name that we've seen them throw around. We've seen him get his opportunities. We've seen him throughout camp be plugged and played into a couple of different schemes, and I'd imagine he'd get his number called here as the season prevails, as all of this kind of unfolds, if you will. There's going to be, two other additions to this cornerback depth, like we keep saying. It's going to be him. Actually, there could be three. It's going to be him, Zy Alexander whenever he gets ready, and then you can expect Toviano to be able to make a big push for those minutes again. Toviano had a good rep today against Chris Hilton. It's another star. Chris Hilton, CJ Daniels. When JK can lock down CJ and you got Toviano pretty much putting straps on Chris, it might be worth throwing them out there. Might be worth seeing what they can do. It'll be interesting to see that situation with Toviano unfold, see how it affects him, see if it prevents him from getting these minutes. But, if you asked me before fall camp, before spring camp, if Toviano was going to see the field and be a big element, I would have maybe even guessed he would be a starter. Other news, we had Jelani Watkins look a little banged up. I'm not too sure what the situation may be. Looked like a lower leg injury, looked like maybe an ankle, maybe something. He hobbled off, went to the side. We'll keep tabs on that one. And another thing that it hit me today at practice. I'm just looking around and I'm like, man, there's no number 18 yet. Thought that one was a little interesting. And I was just wondering, looking at the roster, looking at the field, who could even wear the number 18? Two names popped into my head. The first one, and I'm not too sure how indicative this, like, how probable of a situation this can be because he just changed the number. But Major Burns, not a bad look. He's already number 8. Maybe add an extra one on there. Take that leadership number that LSU's been keeping pretty traditional. Seems like that's really the person that gets that number. It's the person that's the team's heartbeat, if you will. And I feel like he'd fit that mold pretty well. Another name, Josh Williams. Josh Williams can pretty much embody the number 18 just because he's been around for a while. I mean, you could say the same about John Emery, but he just hit the portal. Might ruin your chances at it if you ask me. He does have number 22, though. Doesn't have his old number 4. So he might be in line for a jersey change if he really wanted. But drop your comments who you think could potentially be number 18. It's an interesting one to keep tabs on. We got Ryan in the chat. Did the DBs look better today? They had a little bit of man, did they look better? I'd say it was all right. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't a bad day. Better is tough because they've had good days. You've had days with Ashton Stamps getting interceptions. Yesterday, you saw Paris Shane get an interception. You had your reps. You had your moments. Toviano did pretty decent. J.K. Johnson had his moments. P.J. Willen shined a little bit. The highlight video, we're going to do it in this order. It'll start off with the offense versus defense, and then it'll kind of move into more of a defensive look. But the DBs weren't elite. They weren't garbage. So it's kind of in the middle. It's kind of a limbo where we're just going to have to keep stacking days, keep being consistent, keep adding layers to the game, as we keep saying. You got 19 days until USC. 19. Less than 3 weeks. LSU's playing football in week 1 in Las Vegas. And that's when you're really going to get to see if the DBs are cream of the crop or if they're rising to the top or what have you. Rylan in the chat asking, Toviano, can he start? Yeah, I think so. I think he's got a decent shot. Like we said, though, it's going to be always going to be a monitored situation just because of the potential suspension of any type of potential infraction or just whatever could happen from the situation. I don't know if it's closed and shut. We'll keep watching it. He's on the field. He's reinstated. Nothing is really being done on that side of it, at least. But will he see a week 1 suspension? Will things, kind of play out in that regard of him not seeing the field? I don't know. It's too early to tell. We'll have to keep looking. I'm not an expert in that regard, but let's just say everything stays the same as it is now. He's reinstated and he has the opportunity to play. I think he could see the field, and I think he'll have a good, decent role. I just don't know if he's going to start. because you're not sitting Ashton Stamps. Looks like they're pretty much all in on Sage Ryan, and if they're not, I think the next two people in line would be J.K. Johnson and then Zy Alexander. But who knows? There could be some schemes where Toviano sees the field. I'm sure he could. Like we said, he had a great rep against Chris Hilton Jr. He's a phenomenal, very talented player. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get thrown out there. And also, like we said, if you would have asked me before fall and spring camp, where would Toviano be on the depth chart? Like we said, could have been a starter. Potentially could have been a starter. I don't know if anything changes or if LSU's going to make something shake. Womack looking strong. Yeah, Womack's had some pretty good reps. The main thing that I enjoy out of that DN room the most, and this is kind of interesting, but it's just the physicality of it. I feel like that's pretty generic, pretty broad. But with how pissed off they look, it's going to be pretty hard to imagine that defensive line doesn't get any pressure. Not to mention Womack, but you got Braden Swinson, you got Savion Jones, you got a guy named Dylan Carpenter on the edge. The DN position could be one of your stronger points. Defensive tackle, of course, you're going to have to look towards guys like Jacoby Guillory, Paris Shan, Sean Washington, GOPS. There's a couple of pieces there that I think, you could run. You got a lot of names to choose from, but all in all, just to keep, circle back on your question, Womack, I think he could have a breakout season. I think Womack has been about as consistent as anybody else. The only other name that I'm going to throw in a hat for the defensive line room that's been very consistent, very aggressive from that, I'll actually just narrow it to D end, is Savion Jones. Savion's look incredible, and it'll be interesting to see him as the season progresses, what he does, how he handles it. Real quick, before we hop out of here, though, wanted to thank our guys at Happy Dad for sponsoring the show, joining the team, making all these things possible. Appreciate it. You can get your Happy Dad at Albertsons. You can get it at Rouse's. You can get it at Walmart while supplies last. It's your best tasting hard seltzer, low in sugar, gluten-free. Go ahead, crack one open. Tell them the Vernon Verdict sent you. Got Coco in the chat saying Dylan Carpenter, absolute dog on CFB Ultimate Team. Coco, you play that trash, bro. Ultimate Team trash. That's sad, man. We need to get you off them sticks, bro. We need to get you on a damn golf course or something, Coco. But just a quick update. We got a practice tomorrow. It'll be visual, notes only. We won't be doing any highlights until Saturday. So you got highlights today, right when the stream gets off. I'm going back in the office, going back to the thumbnail lab, and we're getting them out for you. And then on Saturday, we're going to be having more highlights out. Tomorrow, though, will be a visual notes practice. We will go live. We will break it down. We'll continue to add the coverage. Y'all comment any single thing you want me to look at tomorrow. I don't care what it is. You can ask me, what color is the damn Gatorade at LSU's practice? I'll go figure it out for you. Drop your comments below. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Thank y'all so much for joining. Thanks for the support again. Been a pretty fun week. It's going to be a pretty fun season, though. We ain't stopping yet. We're actually just getting started. Appreciate everyone to chat. Trevor, Coco, Jerry, Ryla, Seth, all our guys. It's been pretty cool to, build this community. But hey, we ain't done yet. Y'all have a good one. This has been the Vernon Verdict. Enjoy y'all day.